or what I think of the place that we have to target the most of our work is through the education system. Especially in America, 90% of American citizens have gone through the education system. It's mandatory. Like your parents can go to jail. You can be fined if you don't put your kids into school. And so when you think about it like that and you think of, you know, the state of the world or America, we have very high obesity rates. We have very high mental health issues, lots of homelessness, lots of poverty. And the one place that everybody goes is the education system. So I can see how the education system is failing our citizens and why it's important for all of us to be involved in the education system and, you know, give whatever you can into those spaces to help change it and really create that educational reform. Yeah, so that's the state of the world. I think most of everything that we deal with can be worked on or fixed or influenced by what we do in the education system. And so it's important to empower educators and really get your foot in the door with the education system, because it's not going anywhere. It's the law that we go, you know. So it's that's why I'm very passionate about targeting that educational space, because it gives us access to every citizen, everybody that's going to grow up to be an adult, and that we want to go back into the world and be, you know, a productive citizen. So in order to really impact the mass, that's just a place we all need to be in coherence about what we should target and what we should do.
Right. That's great. What specific areas do you think, you know, we need to target? And can you give us a little bit more insight into the impacts of the pandemic and the youth, you know, mental health?
Yeah, so the pandemic really created a lot of issues for our youth. They were sitting behind cameras. They were finding identities, you know, with filters, not having to show their face. One of the biggest issues with the virtual learning was kids not wanting to turn on their cameras and be seen on camera or be recorded. And so now they're going back into person and they have to readapt to being in person. And, you know, even with the mask lifts, they're still wanting to hide behind the masks. They're still not wanting to show their faces. I mean, I've had several students who I do this little activity with them before they leave my office. I got to look in the mirror and say a word, you know, like I love myself, or they have to say something positive and stuff in the mirror. And I have tons of kids who can't look themselves in the mirror and say, I love you. And the pandemic has really affected, you know, their self-identities and then also their social skills. You take a sixth grader right now, they're really a fourth grader. If you take an eighth grader, they're really a sixth grader. And cognitively, developmentally, they're socially behind, and they need a lot of grace and support to help develop those social skills. So something as simple as, you know, when you have conflict with someone, not texting. You can't catch someone's tone by texting, right? And also not, you know, going and confronting someone with multiple people behind you. You've got to say, hey, can I talk to you alone, and really have that conversation one-on-one with somebody to really have conflict resolution. But those are skills that they don't have. We expect them to have, but they don't. And we have to really support them in developing those skills. So yeah, the pandemic, they are a part of a new history. Like this group of kids that have gone through that, they are the new history, and we really need to listen to them to help understand how they feel about what they've experienced, and figure out how we can support them according to how they feel, not what we think we should do.
Right. So important. Just giving them the outlet and the tools to be able to navigate their emotions and being able to communicate. And I know you brought up, you know, different tools that you use, having them look in the mirror and affirm a positive affirmation. What other things, you know, would you suggest educators incorporate to support, you know, children's, you know, mental health in this way, and, you know, positive affirmations and things of that nature?
Yeah, so a practice that I've really incorporated into the way that I care for kids, or I use as a dean at my school, is restorative justice. And instead of being punitive with our responses to discipline and behavior, restorative justice creates a more it's an approach to justice, and it's organized. It's kind of like a meeting that you can have amongst, people who were harmed, people who did harm, and be able to create a safe space for them to really learn from and address the conflict that they're having, take ownership of how they have harmed someone else, express their feelings. Everybody in those spaces has a voice. No one is silenced. So you can really, acknowledge the way that we're making people feel, and come away with learning a lesson before the outside world, puts you in jail, criminalizes you for not learning certain lessons. So I'm super big on restorative justice. If you don't know what restorative justice is, it's definitely something that you want to learn more about, because it's taking more of a trend, especially in the school systems, especially for social justice purposes. I know, for a lot of Black and brown kids, which is what the public school, is kind of predominantly made up of. Justice, we know what justice looks like, and it doesn't always set our kids up for success. And so by using restorative justice practices, we can do things like prevent high suspension rates, high dropout rates, by giving them more of a space to learn the tools versus go home for a few days. We don't want to talk to you. We're mad at you. And now you've got to miss, school and access to that education. But really give them that space to understand compassion, empathy, grace, and that we're here to support them, as adults who have had to navigate through the same things that they've gone through. We give them that space.
Yeah, that's really powerful. That's something I'm definitely going to take some time to, look into and do some more research on. I know that you talked about bullying and, the transition back into schools. Is there advice that you can give, tools that maybe you can give the youth, tools that you can give parents, that could help, navigate these current mental health challenges that you shared about already with the youth?
Yeah, there is a lot of cyberbullying going on. A lot of people have, created this identity or feel like they're safe to just bully people and say whatever they want because they're not, face to face. And the cyberbullying, it has a high impact on people. People are committing suicide. People are, going through depression about what people, are saying to them. So, I mean, for kids, it's treat people how you want to be treated. It's really basic. It sounds, cliche, but it's the basics. We're all going through things. We all have our insecurities, and it's super important that, we treat people how we want to be treated. That's for the kids. For parents, and educators, the kids ain't gonna like this one, but it's important that you pay attention to what they're doing on their phones and their social medias. Because they're young, they still need our guidance. And so, being caught up in our own worlds and not paying attention to the things that they're doing. And then we're shocked when we find out about something. We have to do a better job. There's lots of, parent apps that allow you to screen your kids' social medias. You want your kids to not be afraid to talk to you about the things that are going on. So not just automatically dismissing how they're feeling or the things that they're doing, but watching them and suggesting to them what are better things that they can do, than engage in just negativity. And also not being a bystander to when they do see that, see those things, when they do see a friend they know bullying someone else or responding negatively, speaking up, letting people know that that's not something that you're going to be a part of. But parents definitely have to be on top of their kids' social medias. It is what it is. That's not a space just for kids. That's why, Instagram and TikToks, they have age limits on them. It's very important that you're in tune with all of those things.
Yeah, great point. And I think, just the tools that the different programs will have, I know Google allows you to have the kids section, or the parental controls, and kid YouTube and things of that nature. I've seen a lot of parents put their kids on iPads and, leave them to their own vices, and, they're exposed to the world. And, just like Jennifer in the last live, she talked about how we're just information overload, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can't imagine, being, a child trying to also navigate your own, learning and, your foundational, teachings, while being exposed to so much information. And so, yes, it is super important that, parents are aware of what their kids are watching, aware of what's going on social media, and that we start those conversations uh,
Mm-hmm.
between the different generations. I think it's super, super important that, we don't take light the fact that, the youth need guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and even with her, it's, you know, some of the conversations that her and her friends have, it worries me. And I want to make sure that I'm involved as a parent. I If she's been on the iPad too long, yes, that gives me a break, right? We all, as parents, we want those breaks, but we have to remember when they're in those spaces alone, like we're not monitoring them, anything can really happen. And so it's important for us to create those times to say, okay, my kid's been on that iPad or that device a little too long. Let me go do something with them. Let me make sure that, I am not using that as a tool to get my free time, right? We
Mhm.
have to really create a balance. It's just important that we don't allow that to become our babysitter, or that allow, that to take up so much of what our kid is doing, that we're not in the know of what they're doing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's great. Um, you also talked about goal setting earlier. Can you elaborate on that and what that looks like for the youth?
Sure, yeah. Goal setting is important even for young kids. Once you have helped a kid kind of explore like what their interests are, setting goals around them understanding pathways to accomplishing the things that they want. So goal setting is super important. Even if it's like something I do with my daughter, I want her to like lay her clothes out the night before. So we might say, all right, on a Sunday, your goal this week is to set your clothes out the night before before you go to bed. And this week we're gonna monitor and see, if you were able to accomplish that goal 7 out of 7 days, right? And then at the end of that week, we say, how many days did you accomplish that goal? And we talk about it. But those little goal setting tools can help them develop healthy habits for themselves. My daughter, when we're talking about like mental health, my daughter's not a morning person. I've accepted that about her. She can be very cranky in the morning. And if I don't help her as a parent kind of organize and structure her day to day, then, and I'm just expecting her to wake up, be able to grab her clothes out, and there not be some issue that heightens her. Because if you have a fight in the morning with your parent about what you're supposed to wear or breakfast or things like that, and then you have to go into the classroom and be productive and have a good day, that's emotional stress that heightens your emotions. And so it makes it harder for them to learn. So as a parent in that space, I need to help my daughter set goals, create healthy habits, so when she goes to school, we can reduce any tension that would prevent her brain from being able to receive the new things that she's learning at school. So if that's something as small as setting your clothes out the night before so you can have that extra 10 minutes in the morning to kind of release and be prepared for school, then those are the kinds of things and the kind of tools we have to empower our kids with.
Right, right. That's great. And, something like that is so powerful because, again, like I shared before, I had a tough childhood. So like, I know for me,
Mm-hmm.
have structure like that at home, so I want to commend you as a parent that have taken the time out to really help your daughter in that way so that she can be successful within, the school system,
Mm-hmm.
and goal setting at a young age, helping kids to have vision, is just so, so, so important. So, so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if anyone else has questions, I do want to open it up for you to submit any questions in. So you can either do it in the comment section, or you can click on the message box with the question mark in it. You can submit questions there as well. Um, this is a really important topic, and I want to make sure that we cover everything. There's a lot. So the next question I have for you, Amber, is can you give us some more information on the Give Go Foundation and your goals there and your why?
Sure, yeah. So I started a nonprofit. We're very up and coming. You'll have to tune in. We're going to be launching later in June. So you'll definitely want to tune in. But the nonprofit, the Give Go Foundation, is to create equity for underserved youth. So underserved youth are identified as students who live in low income communities, most of the time, poverty situations, most of the time, single parent households or foster youth. And so we call them underserved because they lack a lot of resources that can help them learn the tools and knowledge and things that they need to be able to go and create healthy lives for themselves, which, is why there is that cycle of poverty, of oppression, of, just not being able to break those financial barriers and things like that. So the Give Go with my nonprofit, what I want to be able to do is, one of my favorite programs is I want to take cohorts of kids to go do physical activities outside of the spaces that they live in. And so what happens a lot is kids that live in low income communities, they tend to only know like the 4 blocks that they get to go. They go to school, they go to the grocery store maybe, and they go home. And there's different reasons why. Some may be, parents are immigrants, they're undocumented, so they are afraid to let their kids go out. Or it could be parents don't have transportation, or they're working 2 and 3 jobs and they don't want their kids to be out, and so they have to go home and come home. So they don't get to experience a lot outside of those, those 4 blocks. And we all know as adults, when you get to experience certain things, that's what really shifts your mindset to knowing like you can have certain things, you can do certain things. So I want to be able to take cohorts of kids on field trips to go do physical activity outside of just their community. The reason why I want to use physical activity is because, all of the benefits mentally, physically, incorporating movement into your life, it can really help you be well. So allowing them to get an experience physical. What I mean by that is, let's say there's kids in South Central. A lot of them probably never been to a cycling class. So why not take them to Studio City to go do a cycling class and then have a conversation about the way that made them feel and the neighborhood they're in, and expose them to something different than just what they're used to, and allowing that to create motivation for them. But it's just the Give Go wants to take kids and be able to provide experiences for them, so that they can gain tools and knowledge, again, to go and be able to create a healthy life for themselves. They can see that there's more that life has to offer than just the current situation that they're in, and feel empowered through, the programs that they're able to experience with us. So that's the Give Go.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, like we talked about earlier, it's really important that we make resources available, and yeah, exposure. Because a lot of times we don't know what's out there. We don't have access. We don't have, mentors or guidance, people showing us like, here, this is another way, or here, let's try this. And I love that you brought up physical fitness, and I would love for you to share more. I know you've played basketball for a long time. I know also that you said you're a personal trainer. You've also done physical education within the school system. Can you speak to physical fitness and the benefits?
Yeah, so exercise movement has been one of the most healing things for me in my life. As I mentioned earlier, I moved a lot when I was a kid. In 7 years, 3 different states, 6 different schools. And so the one thing that was consistent for me was there was always a basketball team I could join, or I could always go run and I could always go work out. And so working out and exercise became a very safe space for me to make sure that my mental was good. It became my physical, my outlet to everything. And there's so many studies that support, physical activity improving your life, mentally, physically. So I think that it's important to develop a healthy relationship with exercise and nutrition, and just really learning how to take care of yourself. That's like the first, thing. We have to eat. If we don't eat, we die. So that means we need to pay attention to what we're eating. If we don't exercise, our bones and our muscles literally deteriorate. If you don't do those things, that's why like you could end up not being able to walk. So we have to move, we have to exercise, and then we have to rest, we have to sleep, or we die. So knowing the if we don't do those things, how impactful it is on our lives, it's important to prioritize those things as an individual. And so with kids, it's like if they can learn, the younger they can learn that, the better chance they have of having a healthier life. So for me, I do marathons, I do triathlons, I like to lift. I like to do a lot of things, especially like with representation. There's not a lot of Black people in those spaces. That like to do all of those things just to show like how inspiring and how impactful movement and exercise can really be for someone. And the transformation that you can have, not just physically, but mentally. Conquering a 26.2 run, or swimming in the ocean. These are things that make you feel empowered, that no matter what life comes and brings you, you can conquer it because you ran 26.2 miles. These are things that like I wish everybody, could experience that feeling at the end of accomplishing something like that. But I think that we heal through exercise and movement.
Mm-hmm.
That's, a real chemical is released when you do those things. And I think that's the first start of every journey, is like, look at what you're eating, look at how you're moving, start there, and then from there take your next steps. But if you don't have a healthy relationship with those two things, life is really, really hard. So
Right. And just as like a fun fact, I know you recently just ran to Vegas. Can you
yeah.
share more about that experience and what that was like for you?
Yeah, that was super, super awesome. So myself and 7 other women, we ran from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. We did it in like shifts, so there was teams. But that was so it was 305 miles, I think. I ran about 40 miles over the course of like 52 hours. It was super empowering. Again, it goes back to like things that you think that you would never do or that you couldn't accomplish. You literally can do anything that you put your mind to. And so I felt really powerful and really strong after being able to complete something like that. I recommend everybody try it, but people would say that's crazy. But again, it goes back to like the mental impact that has on you. When you PR, let's say you run a mile in 15 minutes, but the next week you can run it in 14. That always gives you that, you versus you type of tracking, that can help inspire yourself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just appreciate that you're always pushing yourself and, elevating. And I think that's a part of your journey that has always impacted and inspired me. So I appreciate that you share that with all of us, and, just, how you've challenged yourself mentally through the triathlons, and, running to Vegas, and, still playing basketball and still doing the things that you love. So, I definitely appreciate that example. Again, if anyone has any questions, I do want to open it up for others to ask Amber any questions about the education system, youth advocacy, nutrition, fitness, all the things. Um,
While we're waiting for questions, we didn't get to. I wanted to talk about another challenge that our youth is like currently facing, and I think that probably a lot of us also face, which is the parentification. That's when a child leaves their role as a child and they have to act like a parent or a caregiver. We have a lot of that, especially it's become like accepted that if you're the oldest sibling, you're going to take on these responsibilities of helping parents, raise these younger siblings, especially if you live in a single parent household. Maybe that parent has to, work a couple of jobs, but it's super important that we check ourselves on that. If we are, parents with multiples, making sure that we're not putting our kids in a parent role when they're still developing, they still need to explore themselves. And so it could be very damaging to them and their growth if they have to, take on those roles at such a young age. And then for like educators, or people who work with kids, you need to be aware if you have kids that are experiencing those types of responsibilities to be able to support them. And what I mean by is if you have a kid who is constantly tardy every day in the morning, you know, asking them, do they have sibling responsibilities in the morning where they have to drop their younger sibling off to the classroom before they can go to school themselves? So you can be understanding of why they may be tardy and not just thinking like, oh, they're tardy, they don't want to be here, they don't have time management skills, they don't have, you know, really kind of just taking that punitive approach with them. But knowing what the kid is experiencing and if they have those type of responsibilities. So as an adult, it's just super important to remember a kid is a kid, and they shouldn't be treated like a parent, and they should not have parent responsibilities. They did not ask to be born. That means providing them with the basic food and clothing. That is not something we throw back at them. Like, that's what you're supposed to do when you bring a kid into the world at the bare minimum. And so we need to make sure that, you know, we keep those things in mind and we're just not doing that parentification on our kids.
Right, right. And I appreciate you bringing that up because it is such an important, aspect that, educators, it's important that, they're in tune with the students
Mm-hmm.
that are in their classroom. And, a lot of times uh, that awareness will help, be able to drive the the resources and knowing where the kid needs to be guided and
Mm-hmm.
being able to talk to a counselor and being able to work through different things within the school system. And I appreciate that you work within this school system now and you're able to be that behavioral health advocate and work with the students who have different challenges like this. And um, are there any other aspects that you want to kind of shine light on?
I think that if you're an adult and you have a success with business, you have success with relationships, you should find spaces where you can give back that knowledge to the kids. So whether that be through, you know, other nonprofits or the local schools, your kids' schools, if you have something that you can give the youth, give it to them, please, because even like in schools right now, you know, teachers are there, they're trying to teach. You have there's like 1 to 2 counselors per 700 kids. And so although they have that, their cases are so broad that they're not able to service every kid, and there's so many kids that need support. So if you're able to mentor, if you have that capacity to be able to give back to the kids, it's important to link up with other organizations that are doing that work, because it is very, very much needed. We have to remember that every kid becomes an adult, and then that's the cycle, right? That's the cycle of how the life goes. And so we can help the next adults who will then help the next, you know, set of kids by giving back to the kids that we have now. And it doesn't just have to be your, you know, your family member. You can find one kid that could really just use one person to love them, to care for them, to help them set goals, to communicate with them and give them a safe space to talk about things that they're going through and help them create pathways for themselves. I know one big thing in the education system right now is like that college readiness push. And we keep on forgetting about the career push, and maybe a pathway to what a kid's interest is. It doesn't require them to go to college, and we need to push them towards, you know, the vocational schools or really learning the trade. We need to listen to what those kids' interests are and help them visualize a realistic pathway to help them get there. When you can kind of see it and see a pathway, it's motivational. And I mean, I am a big advocate for college because of the career that I'm choosing. So I'm not saying, you know, college isn't important. I do think it's very important, especially depending on your career pathway. But just considering both, college and career, you know, the different pathways that are out there, and not just influencing kids on what we think should be best for them and their long term, but listening to them. What are they interested in? And then helping them, find resources and create a pathway to being able to achieve that.
Right. Yeah. You know, it's yeah. I mean, there's so many different pathways that our youth, can take. And entrepreneurship is something that for me growing up I wasn't really exposed to. And it wasn't until I was, basically when I went to college when I really started to see like true entrepreneurship, people, starting from ground zero and building businesses. And it was so inspiring to see that. And so, yeah, I really do appreciate you, calling us all to expose what we do to the youth,
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that we're passing on the information and knowledge that we have to ensure that they can, have the success in their own life, and then in turn be able to continue to share that information with others. And MZO's motto is shifting society forward. And, ultimately our goal is to make sure that we can provide those resources, that we can
Mm-hmm.
that we can walk hand in hand with, other educators like yourself, but also with the youth directly. So
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate you bringing that up. Um, I want to open it up one more time. If anybody has questions before we close out. Um, but Amber, like I said, I really do appreciate you sharing all this information and being able to cover the, current state of our education system, some of the things that we, should focus on in terms of reforming it, and, things that we can be doing within our own homes to support the
Mm-hmm.
youth we have within our homes, but, the youth that are around us. And, just find one, just
Find one.
find one child,
Yeah.
to give back to.
It truly takes a village, and we as the adults have to do a better job of not pushing the responsibility off. It's the parents that have to control the kid. It's the teacher that has to control the kid. No, we all aspects of behavior are related, and it's important that as adults we present a united force, for the kids, advocating for them, because mental health doesn't discriminate against age.
Mhm.
Our kids can be going through all of the things that we go through as adults, and it's important to acknowledge that and not dismiss it just because they are young. They need us. They need our advocacy. Is super important, that we're all, having that village mindset and doing our best, to give back to them.
Right, right, right. And like I told you before, for me, I wouldn't have been able to get through high school if I didn't have the mentor I had, and that was my music teacher, and she just took me under
Mm,
her wing. She made sure, and that's why I have such a heart for education. I ended
yeah.
up for music ed for that purpose, because I saw the impact that she made in my life. I love music, and I was like, hey, I just want to keep moving it forward, But if it weren't for having a woman like that in my life to give me the time, ensuring that because I wanted to sing, she made sure to provide ways for me to have those voice lessons. Hey, come home early with me and babysit while I teach my other lessons, so that will pay for you to, have your lesson at the end of the night. So that's what I would do. Go home with her at 3. I'd babysit her kids while she taught the other voice lessons, and was able to have my lesson at the end of the night. And she made sure I got home safe. And those individuals that give back their time and find ways to support the children around them, is so important. And like I said, I appreciate you for that. We did get a question, and it's a good one. At what age did you understand this was what you were called to do?
Um, uh, Very young. My parents were, I think I mentioned it, my parents were ministry leaders. So I used to get put in, we had Kids Kingdom.
Mhm.
So all the kids, they'd go into a room, and I think I just, my parents were the parents who we had to memorize scriptures, and we were taught to kind of be good human beings, like really, consider others before ourselves. And so I remember being in like Kids Kingdom and always wanting to go into the little kids classes to like help and teach them. And that just turned into like what I became passionate about. And I had that parentification because my mom was not in the house, and my dad was, depressed, um, because of my mom and him not, being having a successful marriage, and I had to take on a lot of the roles, helping my brother and my sister. And then I met one person, one coach that really, he really made me believe in myself. And he did that he was my strength and conditioning coach, but he really just always made me feel empowered that, I could accomplish anything that I wanted. And so it's just like you were mentioning, it takes one person. And so knowing that, I just became super passionate about that. Even any school that I can be at, if I can help just one kid, that's gonna help the world, impact the world in some kind of way. It's gonna save at least one situation. And not, there's a lot of evil working in this world, um, but we can offset that with the good that we do. And I think the best way to do that is to give back to the kids. Like you could, ask your local school, do they have a career day, and volunteer to speak at the career day. It could be something as simple as that, but connecting like one adult with that one kid that doesn't have that. I didn't have my mom, so it was hard that way. And then I moved so much, so it wasn't. I met the trainer, the coach guy, when I was like 16 or 17, and that created a real shift for me in my life. So the earlier the better that we can get involved with the youth, we can help them prevent a lot of them from going through a lot of trauma. um,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, so if we have no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and close out. But I want to say thank you so much, Amber. You brought so much valuable information to us today. And it's, for me, like I said, it hits home really deep because of the work that you're doing and your foundation, specifically that, you're focusing on mentoring and giving, you know, underprivileged youth the opportunity to be exposed to more
mhm.
than what they, may have resources and the opportunity to see on their own. So I just appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate that you've, stuck in the education system, that you're there, because I can only imagine the daily challenges that you face on so many levels. Um, yeah, and yeah, I just speechless really because I can only imagine. But the fact that you've stuck in there and you've worked your way up, you've given back, um, and you're continuing to do so is really impactful. So I just want to let you know that you are seen, that you're appreciated, and that all of us that are on the road to shifting society forward, supporting our generations to come, are here with you, and definitely want to keep moving society forward. So thank you so much, Amber, for your time. Thank you everyone who's joined the live. The live will be posted on our website, mzoworldwide.com. Under the community tab, you'll be able to see the recap. You'll be able to see more information on Amber. You'll be able to keep track of I believe you submitted the donation page, or you submitted information about your fundraiser, right?
Mhm.
Your fundraiser soon. So, we'll keep that information up. Is there any information you'd like to share on that regarding the fundraiser, or where they can find you and give the GiveGo Foundation?
Yeah, so the Give Go, our website is going to be launching on June 10th. I am pairing it with a training. I'm going to be doing a half Ironman September 11th. A half Ironman is a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike, and a 13.1 run. And I am doing that to bring awareness to the mission of the Give Go. So the next 4 months, if you follow me on Instagram, you are going to see a lot about that training process, and you're going to hear a lot more about the ways that I want to advocate for the youth. And hopefully you'll, want to help fundraise, so we can get those programs going for the kids and really get the Give Go given in so that those kids can go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let us know how we can be of assistance. Yeah, please let us know. MCO definitely wants to support, and we definitely want to be in alignment with you. So I appreciate that. And Again, thank you so much for your time. And then everyone check back next week, May 30th, Memorial Day. We will have another live. We are going to be live with mental health awareness officials, and we'll be doing some painting, and we'll be also talking about mental health and artistry as well. So be sure to check back in MZO Worldwide next week at 5 p.m. And Amber, again, thank you so much and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much for helping or having me, and thank you everybody that jumped on and listened. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
All right, all. Have a good night.
Bye.